Hi everyone, welcome to the second webinar of a series of webinars conducted by TCS Online in lieu of the upcoming OCS examinations happening in August 2022. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for TCS. And before we commence with today's webinar, let me talk about the webinars which TCS is conducting. In webinar number 1, which happened 2 weeks back, we provided you with an 8-week study plan. If you are yet to check out that video, I invite you guys to visit our website, which is www.studyatTCS.com, and the recorded version of webinar number 1 is uploaded under free content. So please go through it, because I've on top of providing an 8-week study plan, I've also spoken about the technical nitty-gritties or the overview of the OCS examination. So please go through it if you are yet to go through webinar number 1. And in today's webinar, which is webinar number 2, I'll be talking about answering technique, what you need to get right when developing your answers. And in the third and final webinar, I will be talking about what you need to do with regards to exam preparation. So in the third webinar, which is happening next week, I'll be highlighting about how, as a student, you can what you are supposed to do as a student to build confidence and maintain this confidence at your real exam. Okay, so having said that, let's look at the session outcomes for tonight. So tonight we are going to fulfill 3 tasks. Task number 1 is about answering technique. I'll be talking about what you need to get right when it comes to developing your answers. And the second part of today's webinar is about time management. As you all know, the OCS exam is an extremely time pressured examination. So you need to know how to manage your timing appropriately, because as a tutor, I've been working for the past 10 years. And what I've heard from many students is that most students run out of time when providing answers, especially in the case study examinations. So I'll be talking about time management, what you need to do, because if you cannot manage your time appropriately, most probably you would end up failing the OCS examination. So, and the third outcome which we are trying to fulfill is with regards to discussion of a mini mock and suggested answers. So via this mini mock, I'll be talking about how you are supposed to develop answers, thereby talking about something called an answer plan, and how this answer plan helps you with time management. Okay, so these are the 3 session outcomes for tonight. So first things first, let's look at answering techniques. When developing answers for the OCS examination, the examiner wants you to come up with appropriate headings and subheadings. So as you already know, in your examination, there are 4 main tasks, and under each task, there are 2 or 3 subtasks. So let's assume that in task number 1, you would see 3 subtasks. So for each subtask, you need to have a main heading. So if there are 3 subtasks, you need to have 3 main headings. And under each main heading, if you see that, if you feel that you need to further break down your answer, then you need to come up with appropriate subheadings. So when it comes to headings and subheadings, there's a format which you need to adhere to. Headings need to be in bold and underlined format, and subheadings need to be in bold format. Let me repeat that once more. Headings need to be under bold and underlined format, and subheadings need to be in bold format. So your examiner expects you to use appropriate headings and subheadings when providing your answers, so that there is some type of a structure in your answer. And because of you using headings and subheadings, you are making the invigilator's life easier. So when you are making the invigilator's life easier, you would end up getting marks easily. Okay, so it's better to be in the good books of the invigilator. So in order to achieve that, the first step which you need to take is with regards to coming up with appropriate headings and subheadings. And when developing your answers, you need to provide answers in paragraphs. And for each answer point, you need to have a paragraph. So for instance, let's assume in your answer, you are trying to highlight 7 answer points. In that case, you need to have 7 different paragraphs. And when talking about the length of each paragraph, you need to have 2 to 4 sentences per paragraph, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, so if there are 7 answer points, you need to have 7 paragraphs, and in each paragraph you need to have 2 to 4 sentences. And ideally, for each task, for each 45-minute task, your word count should be 650 to 700 words. Okay, and 1/3 of the time out of these 45 minutes per task, 1/3 of the time should be allocated towards reading and planning the answer, and 2/3 of the time should be allocated towards typing. So out of the 45 minutes, 15 minutes should be allocated towards reading the question and coming up with an answer plan, and the remaining 30 minutes should be allocated towards typing. So in most instances, what I've seen is students fail because they do not know how to manage their time appropriately, as I mentioned earlier. And on top of that, students do not know, usually what happens is students, right after reading the question, straight away they start typing fully fledged answers. You are supposed to avoid that, because at this examination, you need to spend some time to come up with an answer plan. I will be talking about what an answer plan is later on when I'm taking you through the suggested answer of the mini mock. Okay, so 15 minutes should be allocated towards reading and planning the answer. And once you have a plan, then the remaining time, which is 30 minutes, can be allocated towards typing the answer. So the most important part is about reading and planning the answer. And there's an expected typing speed. Expected typing speed is a minimum of 20 words per minute. If you are not achieving this, then you are not in a position to finish your answers, even though you would have an appropriate answer plan. If you cannot type fast, if you cannot adhere to this minimum word limit per minute, then you would end up failing the examination, because if you do not provide fully fledged answers for each task, then you would end up losing marks. Okay, and the weightage for each requirement is provided under each and every question. You'd see this, you'd know what I'm talking about when I'm taking you through the mini mock. Okay, so for instance, let's assume in a certain task there are 3 subtasks, and under each subtask a certain percentage or a weightage is provided, and this weightage stipulates how many marks are allocated for each subtask and how much time you are supposed to spend for each subtask. So understanding these weightages is of utmost importance. And you are not supposed to spend time on formatting. Don't try to work on paragraph alignment and whatnot. You won't be getting any marks for that. The only type of formatting which you need to adhere to is with regards to coming up with headings and subheadings, and providing answers in paragraphs. And remember, it's always about the quality of the points. So I said that the word limit per 45-minute task is 650 to 700 words. However, this is not a hard and fast rule. Just because you stick to this word limit, it does not mean that you'd end up getting marks if the quality of the content is lacking. So the examiner, I highlighted this point in webinar number 1 as well. I'm sorry, somebody's mic is on. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So I highlighted this point in webinar number 1 as well. The examiner is looking at the quality of your answers, not the quantity. So please bear this in mind. So in order to improve the quality of your answers, you need to stick to the answer planning technique, which I'm going to highlight in a little while. And let's look at what you are supposed to do when it comes to developing answers. So first things first, you are supposed to read the scenario. You have to read the scenario thoroughly to understand the exact requirement. And after understanding the requirement, you are supposed to plot the requirements into subheadings. So I said you are supposed to use headings and subheadings. Okay, so for each and every subtask, you are supposed to come up with a heading, and under each heading, if you want to further subdivide the answer, then you need to come up with subheadings. So first things first, you are supposed to read the scenario, then you are supposed to plot the requirements into headings and subheadings, and then you are supposed to invest time to understand the requirement clearly. Just because you read the requirement or the question once, you are not in a position to clearly understand the real requirement. So it is better to spend some time to really understand what the requirement is. And after understanding the requirement, you are supposed to start planning the answer. Okay, so this is where answer planning comes in, or answer plans come in. And in order to develop answer plans, a maximum of 1/3 of the time allocated for each task can be used. So that's out of 45 minutes, 15 minutes. You are supposed to, as I highlighted earlier, you are supposed to spend 15 minutes to read, understand the requirement, and based on the requirement, develop answer plans and plan the answer in the answer screen itself. So at the real exam, you would have access to a scratch pad, and I've seen so many students trying to develop answers on the scratch pad. It doesn't make any sense, because once you have the answer plan on the scratch pad, you would have to replicate the same thing when you are developing your fully fledged answer. So rather than doing that, what you can do is you can come up with the answer plan on the answer screen itself. And once you have the answer plan, then you can move on to expanding each and every point, so that it saves a lot of time. So rather than coming up with the answer plan on the scratch pad, come up with the answer plan or develop the answer plan on the screen itself. Then when it comes to typing your answers, you can expand each and every point which you have mentioned in the answer plan. You would understand what I'm talking about when I'm taking you through the suggested answer of the mini mock. So that's what you're supposed to do when developing answers. Then you need to know how to apply knowledge which you have gained or which you have gotten through the pre-scene. Okay, so what's the right approach towards applying information which appeared in the pre-scene document? Know your key information. So for example, this time's case study is about a company called Meals at Home, and you need to know that Meals at Home sells 6 different meal kits. Okay, so likewise, there are certain main points, key information stipulated. So you need to know what these key information are. So you might be wondering how you can figure out of the entire pre-scene, how you can figure out which of the information are relevant and which of the information are irrelevant. So in order to make your life easier, us at TCS had come up with an annotated pre-scene. As you can see, we had provided annotations. So these annotations help you understand the most important information or the most important points which you need to remember. So I've highlighted the most important points, and on top of that, I've highlighted any type of syllabus content or syllabus area which is tested. And on top of that, based on hints provided by the examiner, I've also suggested the different types of scenarios which can be tested in your real exam. So please go through the annotated pre-scene to understand the main points which you need to remember, key information which you need to remember. And on top of that, when it comes to the numbers or the financial statements, we have done a separate a set of slides for financial, covering the financial statements. And on top of that, if you invest on paid content, you would have access to a video which covers the financial statements in its entirety. And I've carried out a ratio analysis as well. And you are not supposed to remember all the nitty-gritties. However, it's better to remember the key ratios, because it's going to help you at the exam, because rather than spending time to do your calculations at the real exam, it's better to remember key ratios, because it adds value, especially when providing answers pertaining to F1 related areas. And you can prepare for possible scenarios, but you need to be open-minded. I highlighted this point partially in webinar number 1 as well. As you already know, you are playing the role of a finance officer. So as a finance officer, you would not know the type of problems or type of issues which you'd be faced with when you walk into the office. So the same scenario is replicated in your real exam. So as a finance officer, you won't know, you can't predict what type of issues you would have to face, and what type of decision making you are supposed to be involved with. So it's better to be ready for possible scenarios, but as a finance officer, you have to be always be open-minded. And remember that the scenario presented in the exam carries the latest information. So in your pre-scene document, as you should already know, it is divided into 4 main areas. Part number 1 of the pre-scene is about an introduction. Part number 2 highlights the internal dynamics of the company. Part number 3 highlights industry dynamics. And part number 4 carries the financial statements of males at home. So that's all about what has happened in the past within the organization. But when you walk into the examination, all the scenarios, all the requirements or questions carries or highlights the latest information about some type of a problem the company is facing, or some type of an opportunity the company is trying to pursue. Okay, so please be mindful about that. Just because you know all the nitty-gritties pertaining to the pre-scene, it does not mean that you would end up passing the OCS examination. The most important point which you need to remember is try to figure out the most important information, try to remember the key ratios, and at the examination you would be provided with the latest information about a certain issue faced by the company, or any type of opportunity the company is trying to exploit. So that's how we are supposed to apply information taken from the pre-scene. Right. So what are you supposed to do when referring to pre-scene information in your answers? Most students struggle in this area. At the OCS level, you are not supposed to bring in a lot of information from the pre-scene, because you are playing the role of a finance officer. At the SCS level, when you are doing the strategic case study, definitely you need to bring in a lot of information. You need to relate to the pre-scene as much as possible, because you are playing the role of a senior finance manager. However, at the OCS level, you are at the operational level of the organization. You are playing the role of a finance officer. So you need not know too much about the pre-scene, and you need not refer too many information taken from the pre-scene. So refer or cite information in such a way that it adds value to the point you are presenting in the answer. So every time you are referring to the pre-scene, make sure that it adds some value to the answer. I've seen so many students, when they are providing answers, blindly they come up with information, or they mention information which is taken from the pre-scene. If this information does not add value to your answer, you are wasting your time. Just because you bring in information from the pre-scene, you won't end up getting marks. You would only get marks if it adds value to your answer. do not force him to show the marker that you have studied the pre-scene. So it's better to refer to suggested answers of mock exams. We at TCS had developed 5 exam standard mock exams and suggested answers. If you invest on paid content, then you would have access to these suggested answers. Please go through these suggested answers to figure out how you are supposed to bring in information from the pre-scene. So at the operational level, you're not supposed to bring in too much information. However, you can bring in information as long as it adds value to your answers. All right, so that concludes the first part of today's session. So let's move on to the discussion of the mini mock. So by using this mini mock, I'll be highlighting how to develop an answer plan and how to manage your time appropriately. So I'm looking at the mini mock, which is uploaded to our website under free content. And the mini mock has 2 main sections, section number 1 and section number 2. So in today's session, I'm going to take you through section number 2, the question pertaining to section number 2, and I'll be taking you through the answers pertaining to section number 2 as well. So let's look at the first subtask. So in section number 2, this is a 45-minute section. And as you can see, there are 1, 2, and 3 subtasks. And I was talking about weightages earlier. So for subtask A, the weightage is 50%. Subtask B, the weightage is 20%. And for subtask C, it is 30%. So this, by looking at these weightages, you can gain an understanding about mark allocations as well as time allocations, or how much time you're supposed to spend as per each and every requirement. So I'll talk about these things later. First things first, let's look at the question. At present, we are in the process of purchasing robotic packer machines. Okay. And the finance director has recommended that we go ahead with a lease agreement when funding this capital investment. So we are going to invest on, or we are going to purchase robotic packer machines. And when it comes to financing this initiative, we are supposed to go ahead with a lease agreement. So you are supposed to refer to reference material. So let's go through the reference material. So there's an annual lease payment which is made in advance in $47,000. Present value of lease payment as of 1st June 2022 is $129,000 in dollars. Lease arrangement fee is $10,000, and the lease commences from the 1st of August 2022. The first lease payment is made on the same day as well, 1st of August 2022. The lease period is for 5 years, and the useful life of the asset or the robotic packer machines are 7 years, and the owner at the end of the lease period is going to be the lessor. Okay, the present value, so I'm referring to this in $129,000. The present value excludes the lease payment made in advance on the 1st of August 2022. So on the 1st of August, an advance of $47,000 has been paid. So this present value stipulated, which is $129,000, excludes this advance payment of $47,000. Okay, so that's the information which you need to know. So let's look at the requirement. You are supposed to describe how we can record the lease in our accounting records and how it is treated in our financial statements ended 31st December 2022. So this is a question to do with IFRS 16 leases, and this is an area which is highlighted under F1. So let's look at what type of an answer you are supposed to provide. Okay, so first things first, as I highlighted earlier, you are supposed to understand the exact requirement of the answer. So that's exactly what I've stipulated in here. You are supposed to mention how to record the lease as of 31st December 2022. So we have to mention about this lease in our financial statements. So how are you supposed to do it? So that's your question. That's the exact requirement of the task. Let me take you back to the task. Describe how we can record the lease in our accounting records and how it is treated in our financial statements ended 31st December 2022, or in simpler terms, how to record the lease as of 31st December 2022. So let's look at the answer plan. So you understand the exact requirement, you summarize the requirement, then you end up developing, you are supposed to develop the answer plan. So the answer plan is pertaining to a lease liability according to IFRS 16. And as you can see, this is a main heading. Since this is a main heading, I've used the formatting, which is bold and underlined. You are supposed to do the same thing when providing your fully fledged answer. So IFRS 16 lease liability, and according to the question, for the first subtask, the weightage provided is 50%. That's exactly what you can see in here as well, 50%. In other terms, you will be allocated 19 marks out of 37.5 marks for the entire task. So 19 marks is the mark allocation. Okay, so this is how you're supposed to develop the answer plan. So I told you previously that you are supposed to spend 1/3 of your time, or 15 minutes, with regards to reading the question and developing an answer plan. And this is what an answer plan looks like. So this answer plan is actually a summary of the answer which you're going to type. Okay, so you need to come up with a summarized structure of the answer. And after you had come up with the summarized structure, you can go through the structure again to see whether you need to further improve the answer. You can check whether you had fulfilled what's highlighted in the question. If not, you can, before typing your answers, you can end up editing your answer plan. And once you have an appropriate answer plan, it's a matter of just typing it or expanding your answer plan. Okay, so spend 15 minutes of your time. Even if you take 20 minutes, I'm totally fine with it, as long as you come up with an appropriate high quality answer plan. So let's look at what you need to highlight in your answer. So first things first, I'm talking about the lease liability. So according to IFRS 16, when it comes to recognizing a lease liability, you need to focus on initial measurement criteria. So according to IFRS 16, the initial measurement criteria is you need to determine the present value of lease payment to be paid. Okay, and this present value of lease payment includes fixed payments over the lease term, amounts payable under residual value guarantees, cost of options to purchase, and termination penalties. So from where am I getting all these points? From IFRS 16. Okay, and since we are trying to figure out the present value of lease payments, we need to determine the discount rate for the PV, present value calculation. So when determining the discount rate, according to IFRS 16, it could be the lease interest rate or the incremental borrowing rate. Okay, so it could be the lease interest rate, and if the lease interest rate is not provided in the question, then it is the incremental borrowing rate. So the present value of lease liability is in $129,000 according to the question. So from where did I get all this information? From here. So the present value of the lease liability is $129,000. Then you need to mention about this lease on the statement of financial position as at 31st December 2022, because that's what's highlighted as part of the requirement of the task. So what is the value of the liability? We need to determine the value of the liability which appears on the SOFP. So the initial amount is $129,000, which is the present value of the lease liability, and 5 months interest from August 2022 to December 2022. So why am I saying it? Because you are supposed to highlight what needs to appear in our financial statements as of 31st December 2022. When is the lease commencing? On the 1st of August 2022. So from August to December, you have 5 months in total. Okay. So when it comes to determining the value of the liability, it's in dollars 129,000, which is the present value, and 5 months interest from August 2022 to December 2022. And this needs to be split into current liability and non-current liability. So the current liability is it determines the liability pertaining to the coming 12 months, and the remaining value of the liability should fall under non-current liability. And in the subsequent years, the carrying value increases by the interest charge. Yes, so there's an interest to be paid. So based on that interest, the carrying value keeps on increasing in the subsequent years. Okay. And you need to determine about the lease interest as well. So the lease interest should be recorded in the statement of profit and loss, or SOPL, and the carrying value with regards to lease interest payments, the carrying value is reduced by annual cash repayments of in dollars 47,000. So that's the amount which we are paying on an annual basis. So every time you pay this amount, which is in dollars 47,000, the carrying value should be reduced, and this lease interest cost should be recorded in the statement of profit and loss, or SOPL. Okay, so that's the first part of your answer. Then because of this lease, it arises, or a right of use asset arises as well. So when it comes to the right of use asset, according to IFRS 16, the initial measurement is it needs to be measured. The right of use asset should be measured at cost, and the cost includes lease payments made at commencement date, any indirect costs, estimated removing or dismantling costs. All these three costs need to be taken into consideration when determining the value of the right of use asset. And I'm applying it to the question. Just because you highlight what's stipulated in IFRS 16, you won't get full marks. In order to get full marks, you need to relate to the information provided in the question. So what's the initial measurement cost? What is it about? The present value of in dollars 129,000, advance lease payment of $47,000, 129,000 and $47,000, and the lease arrangement fee of in dollars 10,000, which is this, the lease arrangement fee. Okay, and the value which should appear on our financial statements as at 31st December 2022 should be measured at cost minus depreciation minus impairment losses. Okay, and when it comes to subsequent measurement, or when it comes to depreciation, the depreciation is charged to the statement of profit and loss. And when calculating the length of this depreciation, according to IFRS 16, you are supposed to use the shorter of useful life and the lease term. So the lease term is 5 years and the useful life is 7 years, out of which you need to select the leased amount, which is the lease term of 5 years. So that's how long we are going to depreciate the asset for. And the depreciation for year 1 from August 2022 to December 2022 is the value of the asset, which is in dollars 129,000, the present value, in dollars 47,000, which is the advance payment, and in dollars 10,000, which is the lease arrangement fee, divided by 5 years, because that's the life of the asset, into 5 divided by 12, because we are only depreciating up until 31st December 2022. We are only depreciating the asset for just 5 months, from August to December. So that's why I've mentioned 5 divided by 12. So that's the depreciation charge for year 1. And in the subsequent years, the depreciation charge is 129,000 plus 47,000 plus 10,000 divided by 5. And this is deducted from the carrying value of the right of use asset until we end using this asset. So that's with regards to depreciation. So this is the answer pertaining to subtask number 1. In subtask number 1, you are supposed to describe how you are supposed to treat this lease within our financial statements ended 31st December 2022. That's exactly what I've mentioned in here. As you can see, before you start typing the answer, it's extremely beneficial for you to come up with an answer plan, because then you'd know that you have an appropriate structure. And on top of that, if you missed out on any point, you can spend some time and edit your answer plan. If you most students, as I highlighted earlier, what they do is they read the question. Right after reading the question, they start typing the answer. Halfway through, they realize that their answer is wrong, or they are headed in the wrong direction. So in order to avoid such a scenario, it is highly recommended for you to come up with an answer plan such as this, which is going to be extremely beneficial, because you can edit the answer plan before you start typing the answer. And on top of that, when you are typing the answer, you need not think anymore. It's all about just expanding the points mentioned in the answer plan. So that's the answer plan for subtask number 1. Let's move on to subtask number 2. So it mentions about access of cost and other critical information in real. Jack Quinn, the finance director, has stressed on the importance of staying ahead of competition in all key areas, especially with regards to access of cost and other critical information in real time to facilitate fast and informed decision making. So our finance director is highlighting about the type of benefits the company can gain by having a good understanding about the costs within the company. He suggested that the company should move to a digital costing system. Okay, and what is the requirement? You are supposed to draft a paper outlining the benefits of adopting a digital costing system. So the weightage is 20%. So let's look at the answer plan for that. So I've come up with a main heading, as I highlighted earlier. I've used the bold and underlined format. 20% weightage means that you are allocated with 7.5 marks for this subtask. So what is the question? Question is benefits of adopting digital costing. Okay, so let's look at the answer plan for that. So I've highlighted 5 different benefits. It helps us identify when we are using digital costing, it helps us identify best prices and lead times. Why? If a digital costing system is implemented, then it needs to be integrated with suppliers' systems. So when we are integrating our own systems with that of the suppliers' systems, we are in a position to understand the best prices or the best prices quoted by each supplier, and we are in a position to figure out the exact lead times, and based on that we can stipulate from which supplier we are supposed to purchase our raw materials from. And this type of a digital costing system can be implemented across our sales channels. So as you know, Meals at Home uses online sales, and we drive sales through our app as well. So when we are implementing a digital costing system across online sales as well as app-based sales, we can track changes in raw material prices on a real-time basis. And on top of that, certain advanced digital costing systems has the capability of making intelligent suggestions of suppliers using artificial intelligence. Okay, so that's a benefit. And the third benefit is our standards can be updated regularly. As you should know by now, Meals at Home uses standard costing, and we are updating our standards every 6 months. So this type of a system where we update our standards every 6 months might lead to a scenario where the real costs are totally different to the standard costs which we are using. So if we shift to a digital costing system, our standards can be updated regularly, not every 6 months, but on a real-time basis, which leads to better decision making. And on top of that, when we are updating our standards on a real-time basis, there won't be any planning variances. And if we are using a digital costing system, we are in a position to better understand the activities which drive costs, especially when it comes to better understanding overhead costs. And on top of that, since we are aware about the changes in raw material prices, we can be engaged with something called dynamic pricing. So for instance, if a certain raw material increases, aligned with that, we can increase our price, or if a certain raw material decreases, then we can end up decreasing our price. So that's something called as or something known as dynamic pricing. So as you can see, I've not mentioned all the points in a fully fledged manner. Instead, I've just mentioned the main points which needs to be stipulated, and when typing your answer, what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to expand each and every point I've made. Okay, so that's the answer plan for the second subtask. So let's move on to the third subtask. So in this third subtask, the question highlights about a scenario where the company is not using the information which they get from their website. The company is involved with data analytics in an informal manner. However, the marketing senior manager, however, the finance director is saying that it's better to analyze our data appropriately. So based on that, let's look at what the requirement is. Based on the data analytics from our website, suggest and justify 3 KPIs mentioning how each KPI can be calculated. So you are supposed to suggest 3 KPIs. Okay, so let's look at what the question is about. The summarized version of the question is website data analytics, suggest and justify 3 KPIs. So in this type of a question, most students, what they do is they just suggest 3 KPIs. They forget to justify what each KPI stands for. Okay, so as per the requirement of the task, you are not supposed to simply suggest KPIs, you are supposed to justify each KPI as well. So that's what I've highlighted in my answer plan as well. So the weightage is 30%, or in other terms, 11 marks. Okay, so I've mentioned 3 KPIs. First things first, we can determine the sales volume growth. Okay, that's important information we can gain from our website. Okay, so I've mentioned how to calculate it. So this is a scenario where we can compare this month's sales versus last month's sales, or some other month's sales, or last year's sales, or whatever. Okay, so that's how we are supposed to calculate it. And I've provided a justification as well. If the growth rate is lesser than the market growth rate, our market share is decreasing, and vice versa. Yes, so if our growth rate is, let's assume, 5%, however, in the industry, if the growth rate is 10%, then it shows that our market share is shrinking and we need to do something about it. So that's one of the KPIs you can use. And the second KPI is the conversion rate. How are you supposed to calculate the conversion rate? That's number of conversions divided by the number of website visitors into 100. So what is a conversion? What is the conversion rate about? It indicates the level of customer interest. Yes, so let's assume that 100 customers visit the website, but only 10 customers end up purchasing from meals at home. Then the conversion rate is 10%. So that's 10 divided by 100. Okay, so it indicates the level of customer interest. So any company should try to increase the conversion rate as much as possible. And if the rate is low, if the conversion rate is low, what are we supposed to do as a company? We have to include more product information. Sometimes customers might not purchase from our website because of a lack of information, especially when we are trying to drive online sales. We have to provide as much information as possible, or else we are not in a position to convince the customer. And on top of that, if the customers are not purchasing from us, we might have to reduce our prices. Okay, so that's I've highlighted how to calculate the conversion rate, as well as I've provided justification about why we need to measure the conversion rate within meals at home. Then the third KPI which I've mentioned is the shopping cart abandonment rate. Okay, so how are you supposed to calculate this? Shoppers abandoning the cart divided by shoppers adding to the cart into 100. So let's assume that there are 100 customers who would add a product to the shopping cart. However, out of these 100 customers, only 20 end up actually paying for what was purchased. Okay, so the shopping cart abandonment rate in that case is 80%. 80% of the customers, they add something, a product to the cart, but they do not end up paying for it or purchasing it. So what type of a justification should be provided? If the shopping cart abandonment rate is too high, it shows that there's too much friction in the checkout area. So if that is the case, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to provide more product details, as I highlighted earlier, and we have to improve marketing to convince our customers. Okay, so if we do these things, then we can reduce the shopping cart abandonment rate as necessary. Okay, so that's the answer plan. And after you had developed the answer plans for each and every subtask, then as I highlighted earlier, you can start typing your answer. So as you can see, I've used a main heading for the first subtask, and it's bold and underlined. I've used the formatting bold and underlined. And for each and every point which I've mentioned, I've come up with a paragraph. You are not supposed to provide one-line answers, or you are not supposed to use bullet points. Instead, you are supposed to provide answers in paragraphs, and each paragraph carries 2 to 4 lined sentences. So that's exactly what you can see throughout this answer. And for the right of use asset, I've used main heading again, and I've used paragraphs for each and every point which I've mentioned in the answer plan. And the benefits of using digital costing, the same scenario has been highlighted. Okay, the same methodology has been adopted, and the same could be said about the third subtask as well. I've in the third subtask, you are supposed to highlight 3 KPIs, and for each KPI, I've come up with a subheading which is in bold format, and I've highlighted how to calculate each KPI, and I've provided an appropriate justification as well. And as you can see throughout the answer, I've provided answers in paragraphs, and for each point which I've mentioned, I've come up with a 2 to 4 lined paragraph. Okay, so that's what you need to remember. So when you are doing this, when you're trying to replicate this answer planning technique, you can't do it in the first time itself. You need to get used to it, because when you're trying to come up with an answer plan per task, I said you are only supposed to spend 15 minutes of your time to read the task or read the question, read the requirement, and come up with an answer plan. You won't be able to read the question and come up with an answer plan within 15 minutes when you're doing it for the first time. Okay, you are supposed to keep practicing this until you do it within 15 minutes. Okay, so that's exactly why we have suggested you guys to develop answer plans based on suggested answers. So when attempting the mock exam, you are supposed to develop answer plans on your own, and based on that answer plan, you are supposed to type your fully fledged answers. And after you had attempted your mock, you are supposed to go through the suggested answer and develop an answer plan. So why am I asking you to do it? Because then you are in a position to compare between the answer plan, which is based on the suggested answer, and your answer plan, which you developed when attempting the mock. Then you can figure out which points are missing, how you can improve the quality of your answers, how you can improve the structure of your answers. And if you see that there are major differences between your answer plan and the answer plan based on the suggested answer, then you are supposed to go and start practicing answer planning again and again. So practice makes if you practice, then you are in a position to come up with better answers at your real exams. So just by doing 1 or 2 mock exams, or just by attempting 1 or 2 mock exams, you won't be in a position to be a pro at doing this. So I want you guys to develop answer plans for 5 mock exams, and after that, what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to compare your answers with answer plans with that of the answer plans based on the suggested answers. And if there are major differences, again, you need to keep practicing this answer planning technique. Okay. All right. And so that's the third part of today's session. And for additional reference, you can refer to the following YouTube video on our YouTube channel, which goes as Study at TCS. So please watch OCS webinar 3, answering technique. This video was done for the session which was concluded in May 2022. Okay, so in that I've discussed the answer plan for the first section of the mini mock. So in tonight's session, I was looking at section number 2, but in the previous session, I looked at section number 1. So in order to understand the answer plan for section number 1, I want you guys to go through this video. So you can skip the, the beginning of the video and start watching from the 30th minute onwards up until 1 hour, 5 minutes and 23 seconds. Okay, so this is for additional reference. And let me talk about the type of services which we are offering at TCS. We are selling 2 main products. So the first product is known as the Essential Pack, which consists of full pre-scene analysis videos. As I highlighted earlier, the pre-scene is divided into 4 main areas, and for each area, I've developed pre-scene analysis videos, which will help you better understand what the type of information which appears in the pre-scene. And on top of that, we are also providing, under paid content, we are also providing an annotated pre-scene. We are providing an industry analysis, a set of industry analysis slides, which helps you better understand what this industry is about. And on top of that, based on the financial statements of meals at home, we have carried out a financial analysis, and we have highlighted top 10 likely issues which can be tested in the real examination. And on top of that, we have provided an OCS familiarization kit highlighting the technicalities of the OCS examination. The most important product which we are offering is the 5 exam standard mock exams with suggested answers. These 5 mock exams cover all areas, E1, P1 and F1 related areas, and the suggested answers are of high quality as well. As you saw in our mini mock, the suggested answers cover all areas which are essential for you to pass the examination. And on top of that, you would gain access to a WhatsApp discussion forum where you can, share your thoughts, learn from each other via the WhatsApp discussion forum. I myself is part of it, so I'm always ready to help you guys out. If you have any question pertaining to E1, P1 or F1 related study areas, or if you have any question pertaining to the pre-scene, then you can raise your concerns on the WhatsApp discussion forum. And this product comes with a pass guarantee. After using our product, after using our essential pack, if you end up failing the examination, you would have access to the same content in the subsequent session free of charge. So that's the pass guarantee which we are providing. So the investment is going to be £99. And the second product is the value pack. So under the value pack, you have access to everything which I highlighted under the essential pack. On top of that, you'd have access to an online mock exam platform. So this mock exam platform is actually akin to the Pearson VUE system you'd be using at the real exam. So it's better to get yourself accustomed to real exam conditions. So you can attempt all your 5 mock exams under real exam conditions via our online mock exam platform if you purchase the value pack. And on top of that, we are providing professional marking and feedback on 3 mocks, mocks 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and this is the type of feedback which we provide. As you can see, for each and every paragraph, I've provided feedback, fully fledged feedback. As you can see, the student had in this instance, the student had just written 1 sentence as an answer, but my feedback goes on for 2 paragraphs. So likewise, I've provided in-depth feedback, and at the very end we will be providing mark allocations as well, which helps you to better understand what you need to do to further improve your answers. So that's the type of feedback which we are providing. And if you purchase the value pack, you would have access to theory recaps pertaining to E1, F1, and P1 related areas, and the investment is £99. So you might be wondering whether to purchase the essential pack or the value pack. So when you look at the essential pack, if you are extremely comfortable with self-studies, and if you had aced your OTQ examinations, then you need not gain any feedback. You need not have access to the exam platform. You need not have access to the theory recaps. Go for the essential pack. If you had aced your OTQs, and if you're extremely comfortable with carrying out self-studies, then go for the essential pack. However, if you are coming through an exemption route such as the FLP route, then it is better to go for the value pack, because you need all the feedback. Okay, you need access to the theory recaps. You need to understand or get yourself accustomed to real exam conditions. And on top of that, if you struggled when attempting your OTQ examinations, or if you are starting CIMA studies after a prolonged study break, and if you're not too comfortable with carrying out self-studies, then I would suggest you to purchase the value pack, because in such a context, you need all the support you need, and through our feedback and through our support, you would be in a position to handle OCS in a hassle-free manner. Then we are offering a 10% discount as well. Let me remind you about it. The discount code is OCS10, and please be mindful that this discount code expires on the 29th of June 2022, which is the coming Wednesday. So if you are interested in purchasing, you can use this discount code, and this discount code is applicable to both the essential pack as well as the value pack. All right, so having said that, any questions, folks? If you have any questions, you can raise them now. Okay, so let me take you through our website. So please visit our website on www.studyattcs.com and go to the OCS page. As you can see, I'm on the OCS page, and it says click here to access free content. So that's exactly what we're supposed to do, because under our free content, you would have access to the recorded versions of the 3 webinars. And on top of that, you have access to part 1 of pre-scene analysis. I said that there are 4 videos. Out of the 4 videos, you would have access to 1 video. And on top of that, you would have access to the mini mock as well as the suggested answers. Okay, and we have uploaded the 8-week study plan as well. I hope you'd stick to it. Even if you are not using our products, that's totally fine. Please try to stick to the 8-week study plan which we had provided, because then it makes your life easier closer to the exam. Most students struggle closer to the exam because they have too much work to do. Most students pull their socks up 2 weeks or a week before the exam. So rather than doing that, it's better to balance your work as well as study time. Okay, so please stick to the study plan which we have provided, even though even if you're not using our services. Okay, so you can purchase the essential pack in here, and you can access all the sample content. Just go through the FAQ section to figure out the type of content which we are providing. Access all the samples before you purchase our product. And this is the value pack, and the same could be said about the FAQ section. As you can see, all the links to the sample material are provided in here. All right, since there aren't any questions, I'm gonna talk about how you can contact us. You can just message us via the website. You can email us or drop us a message via WhatsApp on this number. And on top of that, we invite you guys to follow us on our social media handles, especially the Facebook. We have developed a separate group for OCS, so please join it. And on top of that, check us out on our YouTube channel. All these webinars which are recorded, the recorded versions will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. And please go through our blog posts as well, because the technical information pertinent to the OCS exam, and we have highlighted what you need to get right when it comes to preparing for the OCS exam. So please go through these blog posts as well. Having said that, I'm really grateful since you guys joined this session. Let me remind you that next Saturday we are conducting the third webinar, and in the third webinar I'll be talking about exam preparation, what you need to do with regards to exam preparation, and the most importantly, I'll be talking about what you need to do to develop your confidence, because as per the CIMA examiner, confident students or confident candidates end up passing the OCS examination comfortably. So I'll be highlighting what you need to do to develop your confidence and maintain your confidence at your real exam. So having said that, thank you very much for joining in. I hope to see you guys next Saturday. Good night and take care.